I finally decided that I'm going to take my life back. Like nothing concerning my life had gone the way that I needed it to, or how I felt like it should. And I finally said, you know what? I'm going to do what I want to do. I put my life on hold all of those years because I, wanted to be that wife. I wanted to be that, that person who did everything right. And, I tried so long to keep it all together. But finally, I mean, you end up saying, you know what? I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't continue having this mask and, have this pretty perfect face, have this beautiful body, have all the right things, hair is done, makeup is done, ooh, look at me, I'm a wonderful wife. Ooh, I'm a wonderful friend, all of these things. And behind this mask was this ugly, ugly person. And not to say that what was going on, with me, like I was an ugly person, but what I was dealing with was ugly. And I could no longer manage to keep that mask on. That my arm was getting too heavy to hold it in front of my face.
Hey queens. Yeah, you know who you are. God, come on. Go ahead and put that crown on your head. Now tilt a little to the left. Now a little to the right. Perfect. Now let's get to work. Because we know you got big goals. And you got big dreams and not afraid to let them know. Why? Because you step into your purpose. You speak out on your faith. And you shift up in your journey. Because you a boss. Welcome to the podcast, Drop the Expiring Act with your host, Veli of QueenBayGoals.com. Reminding you that you are a queen before anything else. It's your life and your goals. Make it royal. All right, y'all. Go ahead and work that crown. Are you being kind to yourself? It's a simple question that I'd like you to ponder. Are you being kind to yourself? In this week's episode, we're talking about dropping trauma for triumph, and we're starting with the quote of the podcast versus ending with the quote of the podcast. And Shawn K, our guest this week's quote was, be kind to yourself. So it's a simple question, and I'm asking you, are you being kind to yourself? Take a listen to this week's episode, Dropping Trauma for Triumph.
You're ready. I'm ready to go.
I'm ready.
All right. Hey, Queen Bays. Welcome to another episode of the Drop the Expiring Act podcast. Today, we are talking with Shawn K of the Shawn K Collective, who also has a podcast, and I want to get it right. It's Lipstick, Coffee, Jesus. Because it's all about the lipstick, all about the coffee, and all about our Lord. So before we get into all the goodness, let's hear from Shawn K. So Shawn K, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, so I'll give you the bio that people like to hear, and then I'll kind of give you what what I feel is most important. So I am a business owner, entrepreneur. I would like to call myself a parallelpreneur because I have 4 businesses. So I have the Shawn K Collective, which is my coaching and consulting business. Mm-hmm. I have Shawn K Publishing, which is a publishing company for women and minorities. Then I have Lipstick Coffee Jesus, which is a podcast, but also a coffee and tea company. And then a real estate company with my husband called the Karawa Team. So I have 4 different businesses, but what I would like to say is, to be honest, the thing that matters the most to me is I'm a Christian, I'm a mom, and I'm a wife. I mean,
right,
at the end of the day, that's all that matters.
So let's talk about your businesses, because when I was looking at your intro, you were one of the longest aspirers, and yours said you were aspiring for 19 years. I think the one after you was like 10 years. So can you tell us what was going on in that 19 years?
Yeah, so I have military parents, and like any great military parents, they love structure. They, it's boom, boom, boom. You're going to do way. You see what I'm saying? So you finish high school, you go to college, after college, potentially get your master's degree, all the while you're working. And, that's how life goes, because that's how, they did it. However, life was not necessarily like that for me. I completely did everything differently than what they have thought that I should have, which is okay. I mean, we're all on the same page now, but it wasn't always like that. And so I put aside wanting to be an entrepreneur. I knew from very early that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I also knew that, the way to go was kind of go to college and do these different things. Well, of course, my unconventional route, I ended up having my son. I got pregnant with my son near the end of my freshman year, had him during my sophomore year, was trying to juggle working with this newborn child with school. Didn't work out, had to put that aside. And so I focused more so on getting a 9-to-5 job and doing what I needed to do and putting all the entrepreneur stuff away. Then fast forward, I'm, 3 kids in. I'm now married, and all of a sudden my life just kind of like flips upside down when I found out that my husband was unfaithful. And so 7 years into our marriage, almost 7 years into our marriage, I find out that he is unfaithful. No worries. Do you want me to start over?
No, keep going.
Okay. So almost 7 years into our marriage, I found out that he's unfaithful, and it totally rocks my world. What I like to explain to people is it feels like you're in the Matrix. And I don't know if you know that part where they give you the red pill.
The red and the blue pill.
Yeah, I don't know which pill it was, but I know I just took a pill, and here I am, in the midst of my new reality. And so from there, I'm crushed. The rug has been pulled from underneath me, and I'm like, what in the world am I going to do for the rest of my life? So the rug was pulled from underneath me. All I know was this is my new reality, and what are you going to do with it? So I spent the next 2 years trying to just pick myself up, try to get myself off the ground, and just live. But it really was a struggle to just go from day to day and live. And then finally, I was in that last year, I finally decided that I'm going to take my life back. Nothing concerning my life had gone the way that I needed it to, or how I felt like it should. And I finally said, you know what? I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm still married. I still, of course, have my children, but it gave me a new lease on life. And with that, I said, hey, I'm going to start a business. And so I put my life on hold all of those years because I, wanted to be that wife. I wanted to be that, that person who did everything right. And, I tried so long to keep it all together and I don't want to say make it seem like I, had a perfect life, because I didn't. Mm-hmm. But finally, I mean, you end up saying, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I can't continue having this mask and, have this pretty perfect face, have this beautiful body, have all the right things, hair is done, makeup is done, ooh, look at me, I'm a wonderful wife. Ooh, I'm a wonderful friend, all of these things. And behind this mask was this ugly, ugly person. And not to say that what was going on, with me, I was an ugly person, but what I was dealing with was ugly. And I could no longer manage to keep that mask on, that my arm was getting too heavy to hold it in front of my face.
Right, because it was a pretty outlook, but everything and behind that just needed some work. So I get it.
Yeah. And it was ugly, and it took something super ugly in order for me to recognize that, you know what, I can't do it anymore. I really have to drop the act. And I don't feel like I was necessarily being phony. I just did not necessarily understand that, I did not have to have the facade or the mirage that people expected of me. And I don't even know if it was more so what people expected of me versus where I expected to show in front of people. Mm-hmm. And I had to let it go.
So what do you think made you finally decide, okay, I'm going to let this go. I'm just going to be myself, and I'm going to start going after those things that I want. What do you think made you decide I'm going to change now?
So I don't know if it was one event. I don't know if it was a conglomerate of things. What I do know is one day I found myself, just this is not what I want for myself. And it's either now or never. And it's okay if you have, that realization at 26, 36, mm-hmm. 56, 76. it doesn't matter when you have it, just as long as you do something with it. And I can't tell you the moment that it was, but I do know, I said, this is not what I want for my life. Like, this is not what I want for my life. And I can't depend on other people to do it for me. So, my husband, as much as I love him, he failed. Bottom line, he failed. My kids, they're kids. They're only going to be here, until 18, maybe 26, 27. I don't know what kind of plan, people's kids are, right now. For mine, we're going to figure out what happens. But either way, eventually they're going to leave. And, all these people that I utilize to kind of fill the void, I recognize that they're only human, and they're all fighting their own different battles, and they're not going to be able to supply, the void that I had inside. And so I'll also say, like, I have no choice but to add Jesus into this. And, I recognize that once he took everything away from me, it's just like, okay, now, Shawn, what are you going to do?
Right.
What are you gonna do? You have to figure something out, but no longer are you able to figure this out on your own. And so I had no choice but to rely on God, my faith, and, just really listen to his voice to see what the next step of my life was. And so, again, it wasn't this, I rose out of bed and I looked up and I was like, oh my God, what a wonderful day. Let's start your life over. It wasn't that. It was a lot of different things that contributed to it. But before I knew it, I'm starting businesses, and that's how it happened for me.
Oh, I love it. Because one of the Queen Bay Goal guys is, when I did the podcast last season, I went from the bottom to the top, but the number one is God first, because I had to put him first, like put everything else aside and start listening to him, start paying attention to him, because he's going to tell you where it is he wants you to go. Sometimes he's going to push you because you're not listening, but at some point when you get back to him, then he's going to tell you, okay, this is what you are meant to be doing. So I love that you said that.
Yeah, and it's very interesting. I didn't know that was, one of the principles that you had, but for me, like I said, one of the 4 businesses that I have, I'm a co-curator of Lipstick Coffee Jesus, which is a coffee and tea business, and it's also a podcast. And Lipstick Coffee Jesus, honestly, was one of the things that gave me the confidence to do other things. And so it's a business that I have with my best friend. And she and we would have conversations over the years in my living room over coffee or tea. And finally, we decided, let's take these things that we are going through and let's share them with other people, because I'm pretty sure that there's other people who are going through. And that gave me the confidence to start all these other businesses. And what I will say is, so often people tell women, and not just women of color, but all women, that we can only do a certain amount of things. Right. Like, there's no way that you can go to school and have a job and run a family and, run a food truck. There's no way that you can do that. And, I'm really here to dispel that myth that, through God, anything is possible. That you can do these things. It's just going to take a lot of God, and it's going to take a lot of time management. But you can do it all. And I'm here to say that you can recover from, that things that you thought that you would never be able to recover from. You can write those books. You can start that podcast. You can work a 9-to-5 job. You can have multiple businesses. And guess what? You can still maintain who you are while doing all of it. It's just that you don't have to, fall into that facade or that mask of what other people think that you should be. Be yourself while doing it. And if you happen to make mistakes, if you happen to fall, if you happen not to do it the way that everyone on Instagram and the influencers do it, like, it's okay. If you don't have that, that great podcast or that pretty picture, it's okay, but you still can do it all.
Yes, I love that you said that, because a lot of us, or a lot of people, are living through that Instagram life where they're only showing you all the good stuff. And when all the bad stuff is happening, you don't see that on Instagram. All you're seeing is all that they're putting out for you to see.
It's a very interesting. I had a conversation with my sister within the last few days. And so she's younger than me. She's about almost 10 years younger than me. And she's kind of going through this midlife crisis. And so, like, she's of course nowhere near 50. nowhere near 50.
Quarter of
But
the prices, baby.
yeah, maybe. And so she is kind of like looking at everything in her life, and she's just like, okay, oh my God, what are we going to do next? And so, she went through all of the things that she's experienced and like what she, plans to, do going forward. And to be honest, she has no idea. And so she was like, so I asked her, I said, so what are everyone else doing, who's your age? And she's like, oh, where they're buying houses and cars and they're going back to school and they're working this and working that. And I said, okay, so where do you fall in that category? And she was like, well, I have, 2 degrees. I'm working on my 3rd. And she was like, but nothing around me is stable. And so I didn't tell her this, but I was sitting there doing, a session because, I was coaching her. She gets free coaching from me. I'm thinking to myself while I'm coaching her, wow, do I really know anyone who completely has it together? And so I'm looking at people who are around her age and people who are around my age. And yes, like you said, on social media, it looks like they have it all together. Their highlight reel is banging. But then when you look behind it and some of the stories that are going along with these highlight reels, it's not as good as it seems. And it's really unfortunate that we have to kind of put that out there, like the great things, like, hey, my family went to the Grand Canyon. We had a wonderful time. But then the husband is abusive. And I've seen that even today. Someone put that out there. They work a wonderful job, receive a wonderful pay, but then they're sending something to, our group saying, hey, I need prayer because my husband is abusing us. And so it would be amazing if we could just drop the facade and really be who we are and get what we need instead of feeling like we have to patch all of these things together to create a perfect masterpiece.
Right. I love that you said that. So if there is somebody who is in a similar situation where they're still in the Instagram high life, where they're just doing all the great things or showing you all the great things, but behind the scenes it's a mess, what advice would you give them to start being themselves, start showing up as themselves and not hiding all that stuff?
I would have them ask themselves, like, really, what is it going to take in order for you to be comfortable with putting, the real stuff out there? I'm not saying, to, shout to the world all the messiness that's going on in your life. That's not necessarily, going to do anything or benefit anything, but do it strategically, almost like, what are you doing in your life, what's not going right, and how can it benefit somebody else? Because you would be surprised how many people jump into my DMs, into my email inbox, and then on my website saying, hey, I'm going through this. Mm-hmm. Look, I put out there that me and my husband, that we're going, that we look great. But then, in my inbox, I'm seeing that it's otherwise. And so, it's okay to be who you are. Like it really is, but that's something that people have to, determine in themselves, that they're willing to put that out there. And it really is. What is it going to take? And then also, how much energy is it going to take from you to, put up this pretty picture versus put out there, the unedited film? Mm-hmm. I mean, it takes more energy to be perfect than it does to just be who you are. And, what I will say is I'm more confident with that. Like today, and here's a moment of honesty and transparency. Before this session, I said to myself, okay, you have makeup over there that you haven't used. Are you going to put on makeup for this? Or are you going to go as is? And, and even this morning I said, all right, are you going to straighten your hair? Or are you going to go natural? Like, these are the conversations that I had with myself. And I said, okay, first of all, we're not doing anything with our hair. We're just going to do this. And then the other thing, I said, yeah. Second thing was I said, no makeup. The only thing that I have on right now is lipstick. Mm-hmm. Simply because it's on brand. Oh, lipstick, coffee, and Jesus. That's it, and I'm not going to sit here and feel bad about whether or not I had time to put on lip gloss or, no. be who you are, and then be okay with that.
Yes, and I love that you share your story in your book, Do It Differently. So can you tell us a little bit about your book and who you want to read it?
Sure. So Do It Differently is called a memoir-style devotional of the 30 lessons learned from my husband's infidelity. And so with infidelity, it is normal for whoever is experiencing it, or the betrayed person, to feel like they did everything wrong. And what I will say is, no, this was not your fault. But what I will say is, in the aftermath, like after the dust settled and everything hit the fan, I did a lot of things wrong. And it wasn't just my husband. I will never accept responsibility for what he did. But I do accept responsibility for some of the things that I did afterwards. And I'm still experiencing the long-term effects of some of the decisions that I made. And so Do It Differently is one, to get those who have experienced infidelity and betrayal to understand, that there is life after this. After all, I started 4 businesses.
Right. I love all of that. You started.
Yeah.
Hang on. My son, that's what I was doing earlier. My son did something to my mic and he broke it. Now I see that.
I still hear you. I don't know if that matters, but I still hear you.
Okay. Well, the leg is broken, so.
I still hear you fine.
I'm just going to lay it on the side. We can keep going.
Sure. After all, I started 4 businesses, so you still can recover. You still can get through these things. You don't allow, the things or the circumstances that you have experienced to determine where you're going and where you're going to end. And I made that determination. I wanted to take the mistakes that he made and the mistakes that I made, and to prevent others from walking in that same journey and in that same light. Because you don't have to. Some people do have to learn by experience. But for those who don't want to learn by experience, I put it in the book. And so that's what Do It Differently is about. It's not only, honestly, for those who've experienced the betrayal, but it also helps the betrayers to understand what the process is for someone who's going through this.
So a big question that I know a lot of the listeners are going to ask is, how do you stay after something like that?
Oh, goodness. So I wish that I had this wonderful and pretty answer, but at the end of the day, it really is a decision between you and God. So I'm not going to, come on here and preach doctrine or anything like that. Whatever works for you and for your church and whatever you believe, you have to go with that. But what I will say is you have to know what God has for you. And so I have no choice, whether it be in business or personal areas, to really, look to God for the things that work for me in my life. And I'll be honest, I wanted to leave. According to the Bible and scripture, I had every right and reason to do it. But I will say that I felt like, and even with my pastors, God bless them for, walking us through this. But, if it wasn't for them and really my relationship with God, I probably would have left. But now that I'm on the other side, like, I see that there was purpose in all of it. I never would have written this book. I never would have been able to help others who are going through this, those who are contacting me in secret. Like, I never would have been able to do that. And I will say that we have an audience, to show people, like, there really is life after it. Do I condone infidelity? Absolutely not. And if it's not for you to stay, it's not for you to stay. My pastor's godmother used to say that all marriages weren't built in heaven. And I was long enough to see that that's true. But for us, it is for us to stay together. It is for us to work through these things. And one of the things that I didn't say earlier is now we have a YouTube channel, and we also have like our own Instagram and Facebook pages where we put the stuff out there. It's called Life Unaltered with the Karawas. We put our stuff out there. Like, we're not hiding behind, this false sense of perfection, and it is our help. And, it's our mission, and it's our hope that others will do the same, that will stop, lying about the things that we're going through and really do it, put those things out there tastefully. That way others can grow and learn.
Good. I like that. You have to send me that, because you didn't put that in the links, because I didn't see
I didn't. I wasn't expecting to talk about it. It's out there.
Okay, so I'll definitely go check it out. So you also have a journal, which I want to mention because I was just doing a journaling exercise. I have on my YouTube channel 21 Days of Habits, and I was doing a journaling exercise, which took me way too longer than it was supposed to, just because I was trying to do that habit along with another habit at the same time, so it just got stretched out beyond 21 days. So tell us about your journaling book, because I'm pretty sure that if I had something like that, it wouldn't have taken me more than 21 days.
Yeah, so my journal is called Starting With Me, 100 Declarations and Affirmations for My Life. And so what that is honestly utilizing the power of writing down things down and the power of speaking them into existence. And so what it's not one of those journals where, I give you 100 affirmations and declarations. It really puts the onus on the writer. And so I fill it out just like everyone else. But what it does is it gives you 10 different areas of your life where you're able to write down, okay, this is what I want to see for myself. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, that's what I had to do. And again, that's one of the things that I learned from my pastors was the power of writing things down and then speaking it. So the Bible says to write the vision and make it plain, mm-hmm. and then run with it. And then in addition to that, in the book of Genesis, it talks about how the Lord spoke the world into existence. And so it's two powerful things put together, writing things down and then speaking it afterwards. And I will be honest, like before I had my businesses, of course, I didn't have this, but I had it written down and I would, verbalize the things that I wanted to see. And now I'm seeing it happen. And that's why it's so important to be careful about the things that we say, being careful about, oh, well, my business is going to be in the negative next month because it doesn't seem like we have what we need. Or, my child will never, amount to anything because he's just like his dad. Or, it always seems like my car is breaking down just when I don't need it. Like you have to be careful about the things that you say and even the things that we write because it has so much power attached to it. And it's not even just a biblical thing. Like you see a lot of, well, it is a biblical thing, but, even the world has attached itself to it. There's so many self-help books out there, so many different journals that aren't biblically, sound or what have you, because everybody understands that it's really, really important to be careful. Like, why do you think they have these vision board parties? Because it's power in the things that we put out there. And so with this, I not only want people to write it down in those different areas, but I want them to speak it. And then there's a place in there for a date. So it has today's date. Mm-hmm. And then you're supposed to go back. And when it happens, write the manifestation date down. And so
that.
I'm filling it out just like anyone else who's purchased it.
Oh, I love it. So how can we find more Shawn K? Where can we find you online on your socials?
Sure. So on Facebook, my personal page is Shawn Karawa. On Instagram, I'm at I_am_Shawn K, or www.ShawnKcollective.com. Lipstick Coffee Jesus is on the same, it's the same everywhere. So they can find me anywhere. I'm pretty easy to reach. And, I will never put people's business out there. If you need me, come find me and we'll walk through it all together.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing that with our audience. You guys can find all the links in the description, and I'm going to go look for the YouTube channel as well, and we're going to add that in there because I want to see what's going on.
Well, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you for coming on the podcast today, you guys. This was a great episode. Make sure that you go back and listen again because I'm sure you're going to catch more gems every time that you listen to it. I know I do. So make sure that you come back for the next episode. We have more great guests coming, and thank you for listening to the Drop In the Inspiring Act podcast.
You have been listening to another episode of Drop the Aspiring Act. If you're looking for more information on this podcast and other episodes, please visit queenbaygoals.com.